Okay, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the November meeting of the Finance Committee to order, please. And are there any public, Doug, are there any public comments this morning?
No, sir, no public speakers
okay.
Today.
Then we would like to have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of the October 25th Finance Committee meeting.
Motion made.
A second, please.
Second.
And all in favor? Okay, the minutes are approved. Doug, committee work plan?
There are no changes to the work plan this month.
Okay, and then we move into Finance Watch, please. Pat, go ahead.
I just want to say we don't have a budget watch this month because there'll be a special section of the Finance Committee to be held at the board meeting on Wednesday, November 17th, to discuss the updated forecast for 2010, the 2011 proposed budget, and the November financial plan for the period 2011 through 2014. And this is what we traditionally do, the months where we present the plan. That'll do the Finance Watch.
Are you suggesting? Are you saying that the budget watch will not be distributed, period, or it'll just be distributed in conjunction with
typically we don't do a budget watch, but we have an entire new plan, so it kind of would supersede anything that would be in budget watch. If you want specific information, we could certainly get that for you.
It's just a practice that we've always followed, and when we have these budget resolutions at the board meeting, that we don't do the budget watch here, and we don't talk about the budget, because it's going to be talked at a joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the board. So why do it twice? That's really what it boils down to. Okay, Pat, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Finance Watch appears on Roman numeral 4-1 of the committee book this morning. We do have an upcoming transaction that's expected to be in the market November 22nd and 23rd for pricing. The bonds that are going to be issued are for two purposes. The first is to pay off our existing commercial paper that is secured by an ABN AMRO letter of credit. As we've talked about in the past, that letter of credit will not be renewed. It expires December 8th, and so the proceeds of this first transaction will pay off the CP, and the second $250 million will pay off is actually a conversion out of daily rate mode bonds into fixed rate mode. And this is for a $250 million transportation revenue bonds 2005G. I think I spoke about this last month. We weren't satisfied with the proposals we received on liquidity substitution facilities, and so given the low current fixed rate market, we decided to convert out of daily mode. And so in total, we'll be issuing $1 billion of bonds. We're using our existing syndicate group, which is going to be book led by Citigroup, with J.P. Morgan assisting them as in a co-senior manager capacity, and we also have Siebert Branford Schenck and Ramirez and Company serving as special co-seniors on this transaction. Any questions?
Are there any co-managers, Pat?
We have our full complement of co-managers. Currently, we have a group of our co-manager group is 11, and they'll all be on the transaction as well.
Terrific. It's a nasty market, so we need all hands on deck.
That's right. Yeah. Lastly, you'll. Sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, Pat. Is there? When is the next time that Moody's and Fitch will be reviewing their credit assessment of the agency?
Well, Moody's just issued a report last week, so our dialogue with the rating agencies is almost on a weekly basis. We're constantly keeping them up to date on what we're doing, and they issue periodic reports that are what they would call their full-blown credit reports.
Right.
The Moody's report just came out last week on transportation revenue, where they did affirm their existing rating of A2. It's a regular thing that we do. We keep them up to date on what we're up to. We'll be briefing them on the upcoming transactions, and of course we'll be doing a full debriefing with them on the financial plan after it's released.
Well, the reason I raise it, of course, is because of the negative outlook, and just to inquire as to when that arose and what expectations we have to maybe get that knocked off?
Yeah, the way it arose was, directly in response to the reforecasts that were necessary on the payroll mobility tax revenues that have occurred a couple of times since that tax was implemented. Now, payroll mobility tax revenues are not pledged to transportation revenue bonds. However, because they are a significant part of our overall financial health, the rating services looked at that as a negative, that the forecasts were not, the actual results were not meeting forecast. So, I think to answer your question, when will that come off? I think we would look for that to come off when we've, seen a more predictable flow of revenues coming out of that particular tax. We can take issue with them as to whether or not that's the right approach, but I think that's at least what they articulated to us as the big concern around the negative look.
And I assume we're taking a fairly active stance ourselves as to, why that might not be the appropriate thing for them to do. And
Absolutely.
Pat, could you talk about the payroll mobility tax, and I know it's been re-estimated. Could you just give us the history? How we re-estimated the first time, and how we re-estimated the third time?
Sure. I would ask Doug. Doug is closer to these numbers.
Yeah, what happened was there were estimates that were done early on, I guess in 2009, based upon some not all that current payroll data, which we sort of inflated, and we did this in conjunction with DOB at New York State. Then those collections started coming in less than we anticipated. However, as we went into the sort of the same period last year, which would be the end of the 2009, talking about the 2010 period, it was the state's belief that a good portion of that was actually timing, and that we were going to see that most of it come back in 2010. And then very early in 2010, they said, well, not only is it not timing, but you're also going to lose some, the actual level of the collections were going down, and you're not going to get that timing, which is what we then, so we started reporting on that in 2010, even though that wasn't an official budget, but we were sort of reporting both ways, but really everyone knew that was the likely projection. Then it got even worse, and the projections were coming in a little lower than even that reduced amount. So in July, we knocked down the projection $50 million. Since then, the projections actually, or the numbers themselves, I should say, have been coming in a little bit better. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday, but we have seen some improvement, and the 50 is going to be negated and might even be a little bit better than that.
So what is the gap between what they originally got now?
I'd have to do the math, but it's a couple hundred. For the year itself, for the year itself, 2010, it's 300 because of that timing element, right? Because we expected some portion of 9 coming into 10. What's the overall drop if you were to ignore timing would be something less than that, maybe in the 200-ish million. I'd have to do the math on that. Yeah.
And on that similar subject, are they still sitting on a large part of collected money that they haven't turned over to us yet?
No, they haven't been doing that. What happens is we have a cutoff right around the middle of the month where they have some processing time. So we have when we calendarize our budget, by the given month.
The MTOA, I think is what he means.
Oh, the MTOA? I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Not that we're aware of.
We're still expecting that about $800 million of MTOA will come in between now and the end of the year, and we've gotten no indications that it's not coming in, but we understand that the state is under stress.
Yes, because last year we left in November believing we had a balanced
Right.
budget. We came back in December, only to be asked what do we do with the money that they took from us.
Yes.
It was a real turkey owl, remember? That's right.
Of course, we have no assurances that can't happen again.
That's right. Yeah, no assurances.
The real answer is we have on the books, what, 800?
Yes.
$800 million. We have no indication from the state that we're not going to get it. But like Bob says, everybody reads the papers. We know the stress that the state's under, so you make your best guess. And as Alan said, we know we got the Thanksgiving surprise last year, so we'll see. Keep tuned. That's really the honest answer.
Reserves are in place, however, to at least get us to the end of the year regardless.
Yes.
There's your answer right there.
Yes.
Jim, will you let us know? Jim, let us know
Yeah,
what's
I will.
happening.
Yeah. Again, but what we would say is, yeah. Again, Commissioners, what we have said in July and what we will be reporting is the budget going forward and the financial plan from 11 to 14 does assume that we'll continue to receive those dedicated taxes which are being collected on behalf of the MTA. So.
Okay.
One quick question. When we remarket these $250 million bonds, we're taking them out of one mode and switching them into another mode.
Correct.
Does the state get its pound of flesh on that?
No.
Good.
No. Okay.
Okay. The next, we're going to move to the headquarter and all agency items, and we have two action items. And the first is the approval to terminate the TBTA swap with AMBAC. Pat.
Thanks. So this staff summary appears on Roman numeral 5-1 of the committee book, and interestingly, we covered derivatives last month, and it was after that meeting that some developments with respect to AMBAC occurred that are described here in the staff summary. Most notably, they were downgraded to D by Standard & Poor's on November 2nd, and that came at the same time that there was some news reports coming out that it appeared that the AMBAC Financial Group, the holding company that owns the insurer as well as the counterparty on this swap, was trying to arrange for some sort of orderly bankruptcy. At that point, we sought the advice of outside bond counsel as well as our swap advisor, and felt that the best course of action at this point is to seek board approval to terminate the contract with AMBAC. And we did do a full analysis of this transaction from inception. And where we stand right now is we're ahead of the game. The swap has actually performed very well. There were some changes made to the swap in 2008 that have added additional benefit to the transaction that put us in I think, a fairly good negotiating position with them on an unwind. But it is a negotiation, and it will likely require some payment. As we point out in the staff summary here, the mark-to-market value of this transaction was negative $3.485 million, and that was on November 10th. So again, that fluctuates on a daily basis depending on movements in the SIFMA market primarily, and what we negotiate would be some component of that.
Pat, so that by doing this now, rather than just playing out a string, we think we could probably negotiate something better than the mark-to-market value we hope to anyway.
That's absolutely correct. If the holding company, which is a guarantor to the counterparty that we face, if that entity declares bankruptcy, that's an automatic early termination event, and it would require an immediate termination at mid-market value, which would be that number that's represented here, or the current. So we're in a better position to negotiate our way out of this than having it occur as a result of a bankruptcy filing.
So this is now the third swap it's sort of like the exploding cigar. This is the third one that's kind of had an issue. We had one with the Lehman bankruptcy that got moved over to another dealer, and we had to pay something on that.
We paid on the Lehman unwind, that's correct.
And then we had the AIG swap. Didn't we have a swap with AIG that also there were some issues with, and we're in the process of getting that over to someone else?
Right.
Probably have to pay a little something on that.
No, we are not expecting to have to pay on that. We're going to negotiate innovation, and we're going to have multiple parties at the table and seek a competitive result. So I would not say we're going to pay on that. This one is a different situation. Again, termination is really recommended at this point, again, to preserve our negotiating posture.
Could I ask a general question? Because the swap value, our negative mark-to-market on all the swaps in our portfolio went from something in the 300s to over 600 million of negative value. Are we now required to post collateral on any of those swaps?
No.
Is there anything in the documents that would have to make us post collateral if we get to a certain level of potentially owing on paper our counterparty?
In the event that MTA or TBTA as a counterparty on these transactions is in a position to have to post collateral, the market would have to be switched from where it is now. In other words, rates would be at a very high level, and the counterparty would be exposed to our credit.
Okay.
As we're exposed to the counterparty's credit, the only entity that's going to have to post collateral is that counterparty that we're facing because of their own rating situation. So if our ratings, as we talked about, if our ratings go down, I think on the transportation revenue credit, 5 notches from our current rating level, if we go down 5 notches to below investment grade ratings, then, and the mark-to-market value were against us, as it is now, then
Right.
yes, we would be posting collateral.
Okay.
And so that's the same answer that I gave last month, that to go down to below investment grade, then on the transportation revenue credit, or in the case of Triborough, if it were to go down to below investment grade, they would have, I think, 8 notches on TBTA. Then we would be in a position to post collateral.
And it's only for rating, so there isn't a situation where if the mark-to-market becomes so negative that the counterparty is exposed to a very big number that we would have to pay them in the event of termination, they don't ask us to post collateral against that?
No.
It's just rating.
It's just rating.
It's ratings and other major credit events, bankruptcy filings, which of course we can't file bankruptcy, so.
Okay.
Okay, so we need a motion, please. So moved. Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, Pat, go ahead. Next.
We have a walk-in action item, and that's a selection of bond underwriters and swap counterparties.
Pat, you want to
Sure.
introduce this?
Okay, thank you. So, what you have before you is a staff summary seeking approval of the selection of bond underwriters and swap counterparties for the MTA and its affiliates and subsidiaries. The staff summary describes the RFP selection process and the recommendations of the selection committee. The committee was comprised of 7 voting members representing finance, treasury, budget, diversity and civil rights, as well as bridges and tunnels. We also had outside advisors to the committee, our representatives of Lamont Advisory, our financial advisor, as well as staff from procurement and the finance department. And I want to thank all of them. They've done a lot of work on this. We received a total of 46 proposals, 27 for senior manager, 18 seeking senior manager, co-manager positions, and 13 firms seeking to be qualified as eligible swap counterparties. All firms provided written proposals in response to the RFP. That was issued on June 4th of this year. As you can see on the bottom of page 1, the selection criteria for the committee was laid out here. Total of 8 distinct measures for senior managers, as well as 4 additional measures for those 12 firms that we invited for oral interviews. Co-manager candidates were scored on 5 different criteria. In conclusion, the group of firms that's being recommended for senior managers includes 7 firms. Our 3 existing scored very high, and those were Citigroup, J.P. Morgan, and Barclays. And new firms that we are recommending added to this list are Bank of America Merrill Lynch, that's one firm, Goldman Sachs & Co., Ramirez & Company, and Siebert Branford Schenck. The existing group of 10 co-managers is recommended to increase to 19 firms. As you can see here, we also are seeking approval of firms that would be eligible to serve as remarketing agents or dealers on our variable rate products. as well as a group of firms that would be eligible to bid on swaps as eligible counterparties, and we list those together with their ratings. Happy to take questions on this.
I think we have a motion first, please, and then we'll
Motion made.
discussion. Okay, motion has been made by Jim, and now we'll have a discussion.
I'll start off. I know this was a very, very lengthy process, and because we hadn't sorted out the financial advisor situation, this got delayed as well. So it's been a long time coming to review the pool. And just looking at the numbers, 27 firms wanted to be senior manager, and we chose 7. 18 firms wanted to be co-manager, and we took all 18, and actually we have 19. And 13 firms wanted to be swap counterparties, and we took 12. The 7 firms that we took to be senior manager, by and large, are the firms that we've been doing business with maybe one exception, by and large, for quite a long time. And I think I'm disappointed, not because these aren't fine firms and not because we shouldn't continue to be doing business with them, but it's starting to feel a little clubby. And I had hoped that we would be getting additional firms around the senior manager table. And I hope it's something that maybe at this late date we could still consider. I also had a question on the swap counterparties, that some of these firms have DB backing, which I assume is Deutsche Bank.
Correct.
What is Deutsche Bank's rating, please? It's not listed on here.
Item number 4, it's AA3, A+, AA-.
So Deutsche Bank could bid as a swap counterparty on its own, or it could bid with one of these firms partnering with them or sharing money with them, or how would that work?
The firm itself would bid with a guarantee by Deutsche Bank, obviously, because that's the rated entity. And I would say the reason the committee looked at this and decided to allow these firms in, because they obviously don't have their own rated counterparty that we could face, is that we actually did a competitive swap in 2005 where one of our senior managers at the time, First Albany, bid together with an outside guarantor. In that case, it was AAA AIG, and they won the competitive bidding. And so we saw a very good example of how this works. Sometimes the big, highly rated guarantors don't want to build up a significant municipal finance function, and they like to work with some of the smaller firms. It gives them a chance to participate in swap and derivative activity. And so, given all those considerations, we felt it was okay to include them and recommend them to the board.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I will say I sort of feel like with all the swap, we now have a swap advisor, an independent swap advisor, and now 13 counterparties. And I hope this doesn't mean we're going to be going back into the swap business, because as we've just witnessed with this, having to write a check that we could ill afford to write. This is a rugged road you travel when you do interest rate swaps and things go against you, as they sometimes can. I guess another way to put it is that it's sort of a highway to hell. And I hope that we're not going to be looking at interest rate swaps except perhaps to change counterparties. As I've said before, you didn't have to comment. My original comment, though, that I would like to see the senior manager pool expanded to include some more new faces. B of A has certainly, with its competitive bidding, earned its way into this club, and I'd like to see other firms given an opportunity as well. That's it.
Yeah, Commissioner Frasca, I would just say that, as we've stated, with regard to interest rate swaps, we will be coming back to the board with any actions that we plan on taking in interest rate swaps. They have served us well, and we've saved a lot of money through the years. There have been, as you pointed out, certain transactions with certain counterparties that really have been very troublesome and have put us at risk. But overall, we have saved significant money. But as we've talked about it, I think going forward, it's something that we're not anticipating doing right now. If we did see a reason to consider it, we'd definitely be back forward to this committee, present it, because we understand what the committee's feelings are. So I do just want to make that point.
Thank you, and maybe I need a tutorial because I find it hard to understand how locking into a fixed rate as we did with the MBAC swap of 5.40, that we couldn't refinance that.
Right.
Whereas with a fixed rate deal, you always have an opportunity to refinance. How that necessarily made sense, but we don't have to take up committee time to discuss it.
But
I can speak to that a little bit. You know, when that transaction was entered into and contemplated in early 1999, it was done to provide an upfront benefit. It was an off-market swap that provided an upfront premium. Again, at that time, there was difficulty funding the capital program, and the proceeds of that upfront premium were available to be used for capital projects. And so, you know, for what it's worth, that logic, you know, existed in 1999. It may not exist now, but that's the original reason that the trade was entered into at the time, and there were a couple of others done at the same time, or similar time frame, again, to generate upfront premium for capital projects.
Yours doesn't work here.
Are you suggesting or hearing Commissioner Frasca's request for more names on the lead manager list to be a precatory for next year, or is that something that's going to arise in the form of a motion this time?
I think I'd be happy to go back to the selection committee and discuss this further, and to the extent that we could come to some sort of a resolution or a different conclusion before the board meets on Wednesday, we'd be happy to bring it back at that time. If the committee doesn't come to, you know, if the staff needs more time, this could be held over to December. There's no magic to having it resolved at this moment.
As just a follow-up question in the same vein, why is it that so few senior managers were selected of the people who are interested? Yet virtually every co-manager who was interested was put on the recommended panel.
It's a good question, and it's one that the committee struggled long and hard over. What is the right number of senior managers? And I will tell you, analyzing our transaction flow over the past 5 years, our fixed-rate deals, we average about 5.25 fixed-rate deals per year. And, you know, I think the committee believes and believed that, you know, having a group of managers that was motivated and incented to get approximately one transaction per year, whether the book-running manager, provided us with a manageable group that was going to serve our needs as the issuer and provide you know, quality investment banking services and ideas as we expect them to do. There is no right number. You could do it with one firm. You could do it with 10 firms. I think the committee really struggled to find that right number. Given what we're forecasting as our issuance flow over the coming years, we would continue to expect to see anywhere between 4 to 6 fixed-rate transactions per year, and that seemed to be about the right number of managers to recommend to the board at this time.
How many years is this group good for?
The recommendation is to appoint the group until such time as the board wants a new process. The last time we did this process, the board approved it in February of 2006. Best practices coming out of the governor's task force on, you know, composing underwriter groups is that you should do this about every 3 years. So, you know, I think that the intention would be to revisit this issue in 3 years' time.
Pat, how many of the senior managers are new to the program this year that weren't in the program in 2006?
Sure. We have 3 existing managers. A fourth was our financial advisor for 10 years. That's Goldman Sachs. So
they were not in the syndicate.
They were not. They were not in the syndicate
Right.
before, but they were obviously on.
Right.
They were retained as our outside FA.
I understand.
So, depending on how you want to count Goldman, and you probably would count them as an incumbent in some fashion. we have 3 new members. And that,
And would you please state those?
sure, the 3 new members are Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Ramirez and Company, and Siebert Branford Schenck. And I would just note for the benefit of the committee that 2 of those firms, 2 of the 7, are minority-owned businesses, and that gives us a participation rate of 29%.
So, and I'm always the one that's would be on Doreen's side here, but you have 7 people, of which 3, 4, or certainly 3 are new that weren't in this program last year. So you have Bank America, you have Ramirez, you have Siebert, and and Goldman Sachs that weren't actually in the syndicate before on these new deals. So it is a big change over what we had before. Jim?
Go ahead.
You mentioned before that there were five qualifications that this committee went through.
Sure.
In picking these people. Could you just review those 5 quickly for us?
Of course. Actually, for the senior managers, there were 8 criteria on the written materials and 4 criteria coming out of the oral interviews, so a total of 12 criteria. I'll just kind of quickly run through them. Experience and knowledge of the MTA, experience and knowledge of other transportation issuers, experience and knowledge of other general issuers, distribution capabilities, both institutional and retail, composition of the client team, demonstrating knowledge of the MTA and the capital markets, technical capabilities, quality of financing and structuring ideas, the firm's overall financial strength and capital position. And then for the oral interviews, we asked each firm that came in to discuss creating a credit around the payroll mobility tax. So they were scored on that, and then we asked them to provide 1 or 2 other financing ideas. They were scored on those ideas, and they were also scored on the Q&A part of the oral interviews, which is an important part of the oral interviews. So those were the criteria that we looked at.
Give me good ideas on the
I mean, do you weigh all of these factors equally?
No, I'm happy to give you the percentages. Of those that I laid out, sorry.
I'm interested in how they're weighed. I would be interested in being brought up to speed on it, perhaps in a context other than this one.
Sure.
I don't know what is the right number. I share Doreen's concern at the size of this group, given the number of contenders. Obviously, the municipal finance industry has been in some state of flux in the last few years. I think that there are some new or newly constituted or newly organized firms and old firms that look different. And I think that there might be benefit to us in having a somewhat broader swath of the industry among our senior managers. I know, and I've probably espoused in the past this idea that you want few enough people so that you actually so they stay awake at the switch when it's not their deal. Right. I'm afraid that I now believe that probably doesn't happen anyway as a practical matter. And I guess I would like an opportunity to talk further on this issue before being obliged to vote on it one way or the other.
Okay.
And then I have a specific question on the variable rate dealers. I guess we have a pretty good list, and you don't seem to mention our experience with how well they price our debt, to the extent we have experience with them. I mean, how do we actually choose among this crowd
Sure.
In a given instance when we might want one?
It's a good question, Mark. We asked all the proposers to submit a data form that provided us with a fair amount of detail on the book of business that they serve as remarketing agent for, both in terms of number of transactions as well as par amount. We took that information and also compared it to our own, data set on our, sizable book of variable rate bonds. There is variability in the performance we see from our dealers from time to time. But I can't say we've had sufficiently bad performance from any one firm that we would, throw them out. We always have that right in the way that we create our remarketing agreements, that we can, essentially give notice to the firm and tell them we're replacing them for performance issues. We have not had any examples where that's occurred.
I guess that, that would be one level of unhappiness with a firm's performance, but I guess that going forward, I would think that the price we achieve through a given dealer would be a significant factor in whether we thought we'd give them more business or not, quite honestly.
I agree with that, and I think when it comes time to be quite honest, I don't know when we're going to be in a situation to have new variable rate bonds or notes coming into the market, but that is something that before we make a recommendation out of the finance department up to senior management, we do analyze performance. These firms would be eligible to serve in that capacity. But there's obviously significant further review that would have to be done before any one particular firm would be recommended to be assigned to a transaction.
Yeah.
Andrew, thanks. I'm a zero pounder on this committee, but I just wanted to make two quick points. One is I share Commissioner Frasca's concern about the number of senior managers. I leave it to Doreen and Mark and other experts to work it out, but it just seems to me that given the volatility among firms in the public finance business over the last decade, but especially over the last several years, that adding a couple of firms would serve the authority well. The other thing is, since I can't stay, I just want to briefly note that on V7, there's a report on station maintenance that indicates that Nassau County paid 99% of the amount due, not 100. I don't know why that is. I will check and come back. I just want to report on that.
Pat, we have had conversations with the county, and the county has told us that the payment will be made by the end of the month. They didn't say check was in the mail, but through our back channels, we were told that the check would come by the end of the month. We'll see.
Just 1 second, Alan. Is it the feeling, since we've come to this point now, is it the feeling in the committee, and this may answer what you want, Al, if not, of course, you can comment, should we, as Pat said, hold this up now and not take a vote on this and send this back to Pat's committee for some more thought and then further discuss it or vote on it at the board meeting, depending on what Pat and his people say? Is that kind of a consensus that's building here?
Well, Mr. Chairman, my motion was to table it.
That's what I figured. Okay, so why don't we do this? I think that, Pat, since this is not a emergency piece of business here, Pat, why don't you do as you suggested, get back to the committee, and if the people that voice these concerns, their concerns can be answered by Wednesday, I assume the chairman then would want to vote on it at the joint meeting of the finance and board, which we have a joint finance meeting, and if not, we can talk about this again at our December meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
We'll
Is
do
that satisfactory to everybody since this has been brought up? Okay.
Thank you.
Next.
We have two MTA reports and information items. Commissioner Foy already addressed the station maintenance receivable update. Basically, we've received all of that money with a small amount due from Nassau. I don't think there's really too much of an issue there, and that's for your information. Also included in the book for your review and assessment is the Finance Committee Charter. This was last amended on March 24th, 2010, and there are no additional amendments at this time. Then we're going to go to headquarter procurements. We have three.
Need a motion to accept the
I don't think so. It's, oh, really?
Oh, you have, I would point out, what the charter says that annually you will do this, and you did do it at March. So if you would like, we could take a motion and vote on it.
Would it make
But
sense to
but
get us on the
did
same
do it.
schedule as everybody else? Because we seem to be doing this in all the other committees today.
Okay. Okay.
Second.
What, just a question before we do that. Were there any changes to the charter from last year? Is there a black line version of last year?
Well, what happened in March was to bring the real estate underneath the Finance Committee charter.
And that's
That
the
was
only
action.
change?
Yes. To my knowledge, that was it.
Okay.
Right.
So if that's acceptable, we have a motion, a second, a vote, please?
Aye.
Okay, done.
Okay. We have 3 procurements for headquarters for a grand total of $4,429,884, I'm sorry. 1 multi-agency non-competitive, 1 all-agency competitive, and 1 multi-agency non-competitive ratification requiring a 2/3 vote.
Okay. So, a motion, please? Okay, before we, and a second, please, let's get the second. Anybody second this? Okay. Before we have the vote, I have asked procurement people to, on this intergraph, which is Roman numeral 5-11, to come back to me and the committee if everybody else wants. This is part of the whole Lockheed default ongoing situation, and we haven't had a recap of where we stand vis-a-vis the surety company because it was a bonded contract. I want to be sure that the agency is not going to be out any more money than the board originally voted for when we passed the procurement originally, the Lockheed procurement. I've asked for a review of all this to be sent down, and Bob, you'll make sure we get it, right? So we're going to, we have to vote for this thing. I think we should vote for it, and I will vote for it, but I want the committee to know that we need to get a review of this whole situation, which has been some time now since we've heard about it. Okay, so I see Doreen agrees. I assume everybody agrees. I think this is important for us to have some oversight of this contract. Okay, vote, please.
Aye.
Go ahead.
Moving to the...
You make sure we get that.
Yes.
And I'd like to put that on the agenda for next time, or whatever way, whatever way you see fit to do it, okay? Okay, Doug.
Next, we have the Metro-North Railroad and Long Island Railroad Combined Committee, and we have an action item for Metro-North. It involves the per-ticket subsidy for the Westchester County DOT unit ticket and the customer price per ticket subsidy for the Westchester County DOT shuttle unit ticket, both of which dollars are included in the 2011 budget proposal.
Okay,
We have...
yeah, go ahead. And all in favor, please?
Okay, for Long Island Railroad, we have 1 joint non-competitive procurement for a grand total of $552,000.
Second, please.
Second.
And a vote, please.
Next, we'll move to Metro-North. We have 1 multi-agency non-competitive contract for $16,800,000 and 2 all-agency competitive contracts, with Metro-North being the lead agency, totaling $39,020,000 for a grand total of $55,820,000.
A motion, please. A second, please. Okay, before we vote, here's another one on page Roman numeral 5-1-2. Let's see what this, New York State Industries for the Disabled. I have asked the General Counsel, please, to look into what the state requirements are for this. I think it's a wonderful thing to do. I'm not against, in any way not giving this to the disabled, but I do think it should be competitive, and I wanted the General Counsel to take a look at and see what we're required under state statute as far as competitive pricing for this contract. We had one of these come up before. I think it was for Grand Central Station sometime last year. So I would like to hold this one before we approve it. and we can prove it at the board meeting again like this other thing, because I want to see what the general counsel says and see if we have made this a competitive procurement, if we can, and that is regard to the rates. So if we could hold that one, the other two, I think are fine, and actually they're very good, and it's part of the business center, and I think we should vote those in. That's okay with the committee.
So your question is whether this is competitive?
Whether the rates, right, are competitive with the private sector, or even more so, what our obligation under state statute is regarding the disabled. I don't know how everybody feels.
My only concern would be that if I believe that this is the way it has to go, but we have to make a finding that the price is as close to competitive as possible. My only concern would be that if the council, and I have no problem with doing the evaluation, if they come back with a positive that this is the right way to do it, that we be able to approve it on Wednesday, if we get to that point.
Right, but when I got involved in this thing, quite frankly, I don't think that we really know what the competitive price would be.
Okay.
So you don't think we're going to know by Wednesday?
I don't know. I think that if you talk to the people here, I think this is the way it was done, and it was always done this way.
Right.
And my question was, number one, what's the proper procedure under state statute? And number two, have we in fact, as you said, Mitch, have we evaluated what a competitive price would be and should be? I don't think we have the answers here for either one of those.
Okay.
Mark?
Do we have a sense of the timing and our need for the service that we were trying to buy here?
That's my question.
I don't know.
Yeah, I understand. I was going to ask Mr. Bombay to come up and explain. He led this.
Yeah, we met previously with NYSED, and we did our own internal survey to gauge the market, and we are confident that within the New York State finance law, that we are in accordance with that law, and we've produced a competitive field with pricing. We have documentation to that effect, too.
Are you able to answer my question, which is
I'm sorry, Mark.
your timing on the purchase of the service here? I mean, is this something that we need to get now?
Our present contracts, and we have them fractured contracts, end at the end of December. So I can possibly extend,
My impression is that this is very much laid out in state law in terms of the ritual you're supposed to go through to buy it. And just one element that I think we should keep in mind as we go through whether we're willing to go through that ritual and purchase the service in this way is that if you're not going to purchase the service in this way, I think you have to start all over again as a procurement. And you might just have that in mind while you're considering the intricacies of this thing over the next 36 hours.
I guess my experience with Mr. Bombay and leading these things, I think he's probably gone through that process.
We
It's
have.
required by New York State.
If you're going to contemplate
Yeah.
not doing that, just keep in mind that you're not going to turn right around and hire somebody else the following day.
Well, what happened here, Mark, look, we have a pre-briefing before the meeting, as you know. And when we went through this with the senior staff that was there, you weren't there. The answers that, quite frankly, I got were not, I don't think, acceptable. And it may be because those people that were there were not aware of it, I don't know. But I asked Jim to take a look at the thing.
I'm not objecting at all to looking into it and trying to get whatever satisfaction there may be available in the process we've been through. I just thought that along with the other variables we're considering here, the timing in purchasing the service should be one.
Dory?
It sounds like you have done the diligence, and it says that the
When-
rates that we are paying using this organization and using
Yeah.
disabled folks is not radically different than what we would have paid had we used private sector?
Not radically different. We've vetted it over the past 3 to 6 months. When we originally received the proposal from NICE, we brought in our legal department and made that determination that we were doing everything in accordance with what the state finance law promulgated. We continue to keep that in view. We've had numerous discussions with NICE about their rates. We've continually negotiated them down, as you can see, and we stress that in the documents. I can go again back to council with Jim and make a quick determination. I can be in contact with the Finance Committee. I have no problem with that.
And you could get that done before Wednesday?
We're going to do our best.
Anthony, can you make a flat statement at this point that the rates that are included in this proposal are as competitive or below what you would pay if you were going outside to a non-handicapped?
Jim, I can make the statement that they are as competitive. Below, no, I cannot make that statement. As competitive, yes. Within the state finance 15% rule, yes, they are competitive. Below, no, I can't make that statement. I wouldn't try to make that statement.
I would imagine, yeah. But if we're on a par, the tilt would be then to go in this direction from a policy perspective.
Definitely.
Okay, it's up to the committee. If you want to vote on it now, it's all right.
No, I mean, I have no problem in waiting until Wednesday. I just want to, if the information can be provided and we can get to the answers, I just want to have the ability to be able to say on Wednesday we can do it. That was my only question. You know, that's my only. I have no problem waiting until Wednesday if we can satisfy the issue in between.
Okay.
Well, we have Jim right here.
Certainly be consulting with Metro North Procurement and Metro North Legal and trying to get answers.
Okay, fine.
So that's okay, Jim, if we just hold it like this?
Yeah.
And then Jay can vote on it on Wednesday?
If we solve the problem.
If we get it
Right. Okay, fine.
Okay, so then is everybody clear that this one procurement here, Doug, why don't you just say it again, okay, what we're voting on, and then we'll have
Oh, okay. We're voting, let me go back.
Better pull the motion. We have a motion in the second.
Right, okay, so we have to pull the procurement then from the motion, the New York State Industries for the
Right.
Disabled, pending clarification from General Counsel, which will be provided by the Wednesday board meeting. Okay?
Right.
So now we're voting on the other, how many other procurements were two others?
There were a total, yeah, so that would be two
others.
procurements.
Everybody clear on that? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, all in favor? Aye. Okay, thanks. Go ahead, Dan.
Next, there are two non-competitive procurements for MTA bus operations totaling $52,306,811.
Motion, please. A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Next, we have bridges and tunnels. Next, we have one competitive procurement totaling $90,000.
Motion, please. Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Next, we have New York City Transit. They are requesting permission to use an RFP process in lieu of a low bid for a fleet purchase.
Doreen says that's okay. So we have a motion, please. Second. And we need, all in favor, please?
Aye.
Next is First Mutual Transportation Assurance Company, and there are no items for FinTech. We have, for your information, the MTA consolidated reports in Section 11. And other than that, next on the agenda would be real estate action items.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. We have 3 action items for your approval today. A lease at Grand Central, a license agreement for a newsstand at Flushing Station, Long Island Railroad Flushing Station, and acquisition of property in Ronkonkoma for Long Island Railroad. I'm happy to say that both of these RFPs for occupancies were not only generated multiple responses, but we're recommending today your approval of the high bid in both cases. So we have no more, we have no produce to be slung around today.
Second, please. All in favor?
We'll see you about next month.
Aye. You've got your leases.
Thank you. And the last item.
Jeff, just a quick question. Where Kidding Around is going to be, what was there
Brooklyn
previous?
Industries.
Sorry?
Brooklyn Industries.
Brooklyn Industries. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
They actually did not submit a response, but we had several responses. I'll say we're happy to have a toy store in there. We didn't require a toy store, but it's a use we've been looking for. I think it'll do well in the terminal, so we're happy about that.
That's it?
No, and then I have the Ronkonkoma item. I think people may have just voted on the two.
Could I ask a
Please,
question about
Yeah.
the tenants on the month-to-month agreements? That's Roman numeral 12-16. I just want to make sure I understand what several of these, notably 2, 3, 6, and 10, say to be publicly offered by September 2010. Have we done that with these, or?
Let me catch up with you, Doreen.
It's Roman numeral 12-16. It's about 3 pages from the back of the book.
I am not
You see the
sure
the final
about that.
column
Is
comment?
Dave Bosch
Yeah.
still here? I'm sorry, Doreen. We'll have to let you know.
Thank you.
We'll have to let you know.
Okay.
I know that's been in the newsstand.
Wait,
it's been in the works.
we have a little problem here. We voted on, let's just make sure that for the record, that we're clear. We voted on the 3 items, Jack.
No,
Okay.
A and B, I think. We didn't,
Yes, that's
Did we
all
vote
right,
on
because Jim
Ronkonkoma?
just mentioned that, okay. So do you want, is there a problem with the Ronkonkoma, or can we vote on all 3?
No, I'll just
so
say
we
briefly
clarify?
that it's a very rare opportunity for us to acquire property like this, and we're happy to do it.
Okay, so, and all in favor? That's on all 3 items. Okay, thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, now, we need to motion to go into executive session, please, to discuss some labor matters. Motion, please. Second. All in favor? Okay, thank you.